Welcome into Raptors today. The Toronto Raptors sit at 28-31, and the All-Star break is upon us. I am Akil Augustine, joined by Sherm Hamilton, Paul Jones. Gentlemen, we're talking Raptors brand basketball as we have this time to sit back, take a breath, past the trade deadline, and the Raptors have had a couple games under their belt. And the biggest takeaway, of course, is the performance of Jakob Poeltl, probably his best performance, second best performance of his career, best performance since he's joined the Toronto Raptors, 30 points, 6 blocked shots, addressing a lot of the core issues Raptors fans had. How do we grade this trade, Sherm Hamilton, now that we've had 3 games and a big performance to look at?
You sure you don't want to wait like 3 games?
We've got some time on our hands. And everyone's grading it anyways. They were grading it after game 1. They were grading it before he played.
This was going to fit. You knew it was going to fit.
Yeah.
I mean, Jakob's been here before, and, the core group that he was extracted from to go to San Antonio had a lot of success that he saw.
Yeah.
And he watched the same guys that were his friends, his draft year mates, guys that he worked with for a couple years. He saw them have success. So coming back, there's a real connectivity, a comfort level coming back to the Raptors. So you knew it was going to work. And Jakob, to his credit, improved significantly during his time in San Antonio.
Yes.
So the maturity level of both sides, the understanding of what needs to be done, you knew it was going to mesh with a little bit of time. But on the floor, his style of play fits what the Raptors so desperately need.
He was a young player when he was here. We had Pascal on the post-game radio last night. He said it's great to have him back. And we look at how much Pascal's improved. But to Sherm's point, look at how much Jakob has improved. And there was all this talk about the chemistry and the friendship between he and Pascal. Hey, he came up with Fred, too.
Yep.
Right? Fred was in that group with 905, with all of them, with DeLon, with Norm. Fred was part of that group, too. And we see like a burgeoning chemistry between the two of them. And people kind of say, wow, Fred and Jakob really fit. Well, why would you be surprised? You have 2 high IQ basketball players that understand the game at this level, that have improved since their rookie year and have, come to the point where they are mature players. So some people seem surprised by the chemistry between Fred and Jakob. I'm not. And his 30 points and 9 rebounds.
Yep.
Without a three-pointer and without a free throw. I believe he's only the second player ever to do that since David Robinson, to go for 30 and 9 without making a three-pointer or making a free throw. He was terrific yesterday. The little floater, and like what I liked too was his aggressiveness in the short roll, catch the ball, put it on the floor, get to the basket at times. I just think, as we've always said, it's a great fit.
And you think about what the Raptors needed prior to Jakob getting here. They needed rebounding help.
Yep.
They needed defensive presence.
Backline.
They needed some low box activity. You can throw the ball to Yak down there, and he can get you something. It's not like he's not capable down there, which is something they don't really have unless Pascal goes down there as an undersized big and goes to work, But all those elements came in one player, in Jakob Poeltl. And usually you have to piece them together. The shot blocking, the ability to rebound, all of that stuff came with Jakob. So to me, if you want to grade it, this was going to be an A before it even started because he was going to figure it out. They were going to figure each other out. And it was going to be a successful pairing with Jakob and the Raptors.
He had one play in the second half. I think Franz Wagner was on him, and he caught the ball in the low block, like looking at the Raptor bench. And he did this, and he looked. It was like, oh, it's you? Like just a couple dribbles into the lane, a soft hook. And it might as well have been any one of us in this room guarding him because you weren't going to stop him.
Yeah, a feature we haven't had a lot on offense. Now, looking at this Toronto Raptors team as they head into the break 5-1, plus you factor in that West Coast trip that they came on the positive side of, what do you expect coming out of the break for this Toronto Raptors team? Because people were more than panicked before that West Coast trip. It kind of, stemmed the tide, got people to relax, Jonesy. And then this trip, how does that buoy expectations for the last third of the season?
You did what you did in the last little while without OG.
Yes.
And some of it without Gary. You're getting those 2 guys back. You're basically getting 2, depending on what Nick wants to do, 2 starters back.
2 definite starter level players.
And more firepower, more defense. So if you're a Raptor fan, you have to be excited. And then Combine it with the schedule.
It's front loaded.
You're right. I know that there's a West Coast trip in there where you're going to see the Clippers and Denver and people like that, but you also have 2 with Charlotte. You also have 2 with Washington, who, a team that is right around your level. So 22 games left. I think the Raptors are poised for a decent run.
Last year after the All-Star break, they went crazy in terms of how they played. So there's something, obviously, a template they can look back on. But I do think the healthy roster, the addition of Jakob, and more options for Nick Nurse now.
Yeah.
He can diversify his rotations, his lineups, and, on some level, that bench is going to be fortified because there's going to be more firepower that's going to have to come off the bench based on all the guys that are available. So this team has a chance to really make noise. And it's to me, you've got to come out of the All-Star break. Coaches talk about it all the time. The game going into the Christmas break, the game coming out of the Christmas break. The game going into the All-Star break, the game coming out of the All-Star break. They did the right thing going into the All-Star break. So now it's about getting the job done when you come out. You got to be focused and hit the ground running that first game and establish the tone and the mentality for the rest of the season. They've done it before. Here's another opportunity.
Looking for a repeat performance, but it's been a season of waves, of tides, of trends, and, of course, with more on those waves, tides, and trends, here's Savannah Hamilton.
Akil, this All-Star break couldn't have been coming at a better time. When I think about the injuries that have kind of stacked up in this last stretch with OG, Gary, Thad just went down this past game, and then I talked to Precious in the locker room. He said that he's kind of feeling a little bit banged up so he could use the rest, which kind of brings us back to the beginning of the season where they had a series of injuries kind of shape their season back then. They had to find their chemistry in December because November was almost a write-off with just the amount of injuries they had listed down on a game-to-game basis. So then you have January and all the trade rumors are floating around, and of course, they say that it didn't affect them, but you can almost feel the pressure in the room regardless. As they say on the other side of the trade deadline now that they say they're feeling relieved, they feel supported by front office in the fact that, front office, Masai, Bobby, they doubled down on this current roster, adding Jakob Poeltl to the mix there as well. So you got to give them credit to where they're heading. And, this last game that they just played against the Magic was a tribute to exactly maybe the direction in the future. So let's give them some credit and, have a great All-Star break. Back to you, Akil.
As we continue to focus on All-Star Weekend, the 2 Toronto Raptors that will be present in Utah are, of course, Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam. Let's talk about Scotty Barnes because all year the conversation has been sophomore slump. Well, I think he's kind of negated that conversation, Jonesy, and changed the narrative about how this second season's gone for him.
I think his aggressiveness in the last little while has really contributed to that. His playmaking. He's been great in fourth quarters, but we're seeing that he's starting to look at it beforehand. And again, we saw on that last play, you got another playmaker on the floor with you, albeit not the same type, but still another playmaker. And I just think Scotty is figuring it out. Maybe it came too easy for him last year. Maybe, the expectations were different, what people thought he was going to be able to do, and he exceeded that. And now the expectation, the bar's been set a little higher, and he's a victim of that. Not that he's not playing poorly, but the expectations or the way people expect him to play. He's got greatness in front of him. He does. I mean, one NBA coach told me last year when he watched him, he said, "Hey man, that's Giannis with a jump shot." and I thought, this kid's only in his first year, but these are the kinds of things that people see down the road for him. So personally, I was never worried about the fact that, he wasn't playing well at times, but that comes with growth. That comes with figuring it out and the experience.
The sophomore slump, that's nothing new.
Yep.
We've seen players go through that many times over the years. I think, to me personally, the turning point was that game against Indiana where Miles Turner defended him like 10 feet off. Didn't even get close to him. And Scotty wasn't looking at the basket. And I remember thinking, this can't happen. Scotty has to stay aggressive. He has to look at the rim. He has to put pressure on the paint and on the basket. And I think they had him watch tape and say, like, this is not the way that you play. You're better than this. You have more impact on so many levels beyond scoring. You've got to change this. And he, I think, came out of that and became more aggressive and became that guy that became the playmaker. And they put him in screen and rolls, which puts him into action. It doesn't have him solidified and squared up one-on-one. It puts him into an action where the defense has to react and there's movement, and he can now read and react. And I think that engaged Scotty a bit more. But I just think he's, his skill set is too wide-ranging. He's too good of a player. He's a cerebral player. He cannot be a passive player. And once he got that out of his system, he was good to go.
Now, speaking of growth, we'll talk about the big dog on this Toronto Raptors team, and that's Pascal Siakam, who got his nod for the All-Star game. Disappointing that he wasn't able to get there through the coaches, of course, but he got there through injury. Let's talk about how he's changed over the 7 years he's had with this Toronto Raptors team, because it's not like the Scotty Barnes story. This is a young man who was not a projected top lottery pick, who was not coming in with the fanfare of a Scotty Barnes, but whose game has evolved and matured. Sherm, let's get your take on exactly what Pascal's been able to do to make him such an effective player and continue to grow and add something each year that he's been in the league.
Well, first of all, he's a completely different player.
Yeah.
The thing that Pascal had when he came into this league was the ability to rebound and his activity, his endurance. He ran the floor so hard, effortlessly, which created all kinds of issues. And you look at his numbers between his rookie year and this year, the gap is so wide. But Pascal, to your point, has worked so hard at his game. Remember, Pascal didn't have that jump shot. Pascal has gotten better at every facet that he was weak at.
They thought he was a one-spin pony.
He was and wasn't strong enough to maintain balance when he had contact. Now Pascal's, one of his biggest moves is to get that right shoulder into a defender's chest with the shoulder hit and create space. Because he's strong, he can spin right-left now. He was spinning one way at one point. Now he can go right-left and finish either hand on balance through contact. His ability to shoot the ball sets everything up with his speed, though. His handle is better. His defense is better. His rebounding is better. There's nothing about Pascal's game that hasn't improved in a significant way. And that's why he's getting the recognition that he deserves. He's put the work in.
There aren't a lot of guys like that.
100%. And the skill set is rounded. It's not like he just became a better shooter. He became a better ball handler, became a better passer, a better defender, a better rebounder. All facets of his game got better. That's the impressive part.
Well, it was interesting to listen to Dwayne Casey on Sunday in the pregame when he was asked about Pascal. And he oversaw a lot of that development. And Dwayne's line was, "I can't believe the other coaches didn't vote him in." And here's a guy who has seen what he's come from and where he is now. And I give the front office and all of the people that had a hand in drafting Pascal, because all of that stuff we've talked about, becoming a better shooter, a better rebounder, strong, like all of that stuff doesn't happen unless you have that in your chest, unless you have a competitive spirit that fuels you getting better. The old adage, don't get bitter, get better. And Pascal was exposed to it as a rookie, and it's like, okay, so this is what it takes. Oh, fine, let's do it. And he went after it, and he goes after it every summer. And I just see a young man who has a competitive drive that has pushed him to improve every area of his game and pull his team along with him. The guy wants to win. Like when they were playing poorly, people would talk to him. He's still, hey, well, you know what? We got to figure it out. And that was his way of saying, hey, this is not acceptable. We need to start getting wins. Everybody needs to hold themselves accountable, and it starts with me.
Can we stretch this a little further?
Yeah.
Okay. So Pascal, everything we've talked about is true about Pascal in terms of how much better he's gotten. Remember, he hasn't been playing basketball a long time.
Nope.
And when you first pick up a basketball, how often did you want to play? How much did you want to learn? How hungry were you? Well, Pascal happened to enter that phase in college and his professional life. So his growth has been exponential because of that desire, that heart, that hard work. He wants to get better, and also playing for an organization that held him responsible and, more importantly, accountable to winning. that changes the trajectory because now you're learning the right way.
Yeah.
And they're staying on top of you and making sure, and you're working hard to make sure that you fill that void as well. And another piece to this, not Pascal's growth, but we talked about Jakob. There's a bridge that Jakob really creates for Pascal and Fred to operate on the floor. And it's something that it's if you don't pay attention to it, it'll slip by. Fred gets the ball back in his hands. He can handle the ball with Jakob and do his thing, and he can get his offense off. And Pascal now, with the hard roll of Jakob Poeltl and the spacing of Poeltl, has defenders running at him. And when he gets the ball, it's lights out.
Lots of options. And one positive, too, out of the whole not getting selected to the All-Star team is he gets that kind of chip on his shoulder because you talk about the drive, and he still gets the trip to the All-Star game. So it's kind of like getting your cake and eating it, too.
I don't think that drive will ever dissipate with
most
Pascal.
definitely.
I don't think it ever will.
Well, ahead of his trip to Utah, we hand you off to Pascal Siakam on his last public appearance speaking to the media here in Toronto.
I mean, you guys tell me. I'm sure you guys followed the season a little bit closer than I did. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the goal of the draft, the trade, that I can feel that, like, that true center position. And yeah, I feel like I've been just getting more comfortable with every game out there.
We could hear in the locker room when you went in, guys were really, really happy for you. How nice does it feel to, come home to a team and just be welcomed like that?
I mean, that's awesome. I think we got great guys in the locker room. Obviously, some of them I know a little bit better from back in the day, and even the ones that I just know from playing against them, like they all seem like great guys. And like my first week here, pretty much, like, has been great. Everybody's been awesome. So yeah, makes it that much sweeter.
Yeah, what's the process like over the past week, getting up to speed with the team from your end?
I mean, it's about learning the basics at first. Just trying to memorize all the plays, memorize all the calls on offense and on defense. And then, like, once you get that down, like, you gotta do this stuff in game speed and react to it just in time, like get the timings down, get all the chemistry down. And I think, yeah, stuff like that takes time. Obviously, with guys like Freddie. Fred's a veteran in this league, and I've played with him before, so that stuff develops a little bit quicker. But yeah, you learn each other's strengths, and you know when to hit your teammates in what spots and where they're comfortable getting the ball and where not.
You mentioned yesterday in practice that you're pretty comfortable with where things were going defensively, and then offensively you kind of said, well, I'm kind of in a support role. What changed tonight?
I mean, I'd argue I was still in a support role. I was just getting a lot of passes out of the pick and roll. Like it's about reacting to the defense. They decided to trap Freddie a bunch of times, so I'm comfortable catching the ball there at the top of the key and trying to make plays. And I feel like I was looking for the pass early on a little bit, and then I noticed that they're backing off a little bit, so I was looking for my own shot a little bit more. And then, yeah, like I said, I think Fred did a really good job in the pick and roll, finding me, and it was just about finishing those off.
We got some help. What we wanted, and I think is the area that we wanted the most help. Yeah, like his presence is huge. Just again, a night like tonight, 15 for 17, rebounds, block shots, like 6 block shots. I don't think anybody done that this year. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Yeah, I'm saying like on my team. So yeah, like we definitely needed that, and Jakob was special tonight. Just all around game, and yeah.
You guys had a ton of pick and roll tonight. You guys weren't doing that the first time around when he was your Raptor before. Does it take a long time to sort of learn tendencies, where he's going to cut to? It seemed like it happened right away.
Yeah, no, I think again he sets good screens, and when you set good screens, most of the time, like if it give an opportunity for the guy coming out the pick and roll to either have a shot or whatever, and a dump off. So he does that well, and he understands the game, and I think again obviously it's going to take us like time, and we're going to continue to get better and improve. But he's a smart basketball player, and again with guys like me, Freddie, like we know how to communicate with him. We've been together, we know each other, so. It's gonna take a little bit, but not as much as if it was like just like somebody that we never known before. Yeah, I don't know how much is that, but I think for me, like again, like I just continue to just play the game, understand the flow of the game, and picking my spots, And again, I think that just my team is just knowing, the times, to get me going or whatever, like early on, I got a lot of touches, but then after that, again, we have a lot of guys that can do a lot of things. So I just got to continue to just be aggressive when need be, picking and choosing, finding ways, when I need to, get my teammates involved, and when I need to be aggressive, like all those things, as the game is going on, I just got to continue to get better at that.
With the trade line dead and gone, now it's time to turn our attention to that team. Every year, there's a team that kind of finds their path the final 20-some-odd games of the year. We know what the rosters are going to look like. The buyout market might change things a little bit depending on who gets whom. But I want to know, who's your surprise, Jonesy? I'll start with you. Who's the team that you think gets their act together and goes on a run here?
Well, in deference to being somebody who maybe can't see the whole forest for the trees,
Raptors?
the Toronto Raptors are one of those teams I'm looking at.
Most definitely.
And then I'm looking at some other teams in the East. Milwaukee, once Jay Crowder rounds into form. And then I'll be keeping my eye on Brooklyn to see if they
sink.
So
the opposite direction. I was going to
the
say.
opposite direction. Yeah, that's what I meant. The opposite direction for Brooklyn. Because they do have some potential there. Like Cam Thomas was putting up 40-point games like it was going out of style. And he has all these wings now, Jacques Vaughn. How are they going to play?
It looks like an island of misfit toys to me.
And that's what I want to see. How do they play? And I will not. I've taken the question the other way, but
I like it though.
I won't be surprised to see them. They did it last year. They were in first place at one point. Durant got hurt. Things went sideways, and they backed their way right into the play-in. And ended up getting swept out of the.
I expect them to drop like a rock.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, the Raptors, I agree.
I'm keeping my eye on Phoenix too in the West.
Yeah, I'm looking at. So everybody is looking at the Lakers and trying to figure out what's going on with them. If they can get healthy with the moves that they made, and they get into a play-in series, a situation,
nobody wants to play them.
Who wants to face them?
Nobody wants to play them.
If I got a chance,
I know how you feel about the Lakers.
I was gonna say.
know how you feel about the Lakers, but I think the Lakers are a team I'm really interested to see because I think they can kind of get themselves into position to kind of make it interesting at the very least.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm with you, Sherm. I love what you're thinking because I'm thinking the exact same thing. Now, let's talk about All-Star Weekend.
Do you have anybody else?
I'm curious to see about Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm super curious about Dallas.
How they figure it out.
They're going to score.
That's one thing, to have two guys of that caliber who create for other people so you don't really have to worry. And you mentioned Tim Hardaway last week and the fact that he's still there. I'm really curious to see how that Dallas team does. Because when Dallas went to the Western Conference Finals, I didn't have them pegged. I didn't think the roster was that much better than it is now. So I got my eye on Dallas.
How about the Knicks with Josh Hart?
I want to see how much that impacts this group. I want to see that because on paper, it's not the biggest signing. It's not the biggest stone to throw in the ocean. But who knows, man? Yeah. It can make some waves. Now, let's talk about our All-Star memories, Jones. I'll start with you. Biggest All-Star Weekend memories?
As a kid, 77, when Julius Erving came into the league in the merger and Doc won the MVP in Milwaukee, that was huge. That was huge because remember, the dunk was outlawed in high school and college. Like, you couldn't do that. But here was this guy with this big afro, and, he was doing his thing. He came into the NBA with Philadelphia. Things kind of changed a little bit, and, that was a big one for me. And then the Magic game, when the HIV hit, and he was, he couldn't play, but they let him into the All-Star game. And, his guy, Isaiah, who supported him the whole time, was part of that, and it was very festive seeing Magic on the court again. And then we know later that summer in '92 he ended up playing with the Dream Team. So those two, I was a Magic fan.
That's my first NBA memory, is that Magic All-Star game. That's like when I came online as an NBA fan. I will always remember those blue jerseys, that circular MVP award. That's, for me, one of the biggest memories instilled in my brain.
Yeah, that was a big, big moment, and not only just for basketball.
That shot too, right?
But it was from a society standpoint, a big moment. Remember when it was announced that he had HIV, there was a lot of questions about what is this?
Yeah.
How do we deal with this? Can we speak to him? Can we touch him?
Back
Can
then,
we be in the same room?
it was
with him?
considered a death sentence.
Some guys didn't even want to play with him.
Well, that's being in the same room,
Right.
touching him because
Yeah.
of the contact.
Yeah.
Sweat. Could it be transferred? So there was a huge educational moment with Magic Johnson
Yeah.
and his involvement in that all. And the feel-goods of him doing what he did, just being Magic felt good to see that, hey, he looked okay at least, at that point. So that was a big moment for me. I was at school and I was ready to drop out of school. I was so upset by it. You know what I mean? And to see him come around, it was huge. But that All-Star game was one of my favorite memories as well.
Okay, what about Vince? That's got to be something that sticks in the back of everyone's mind.
For me, the Vince game was the dunk contest in 2000 after the lockout.
Yep.
And again, I was
That
fortunate.
one had me quiet. I didn't know what to say. Like Vince said,
We didn't know what he did when he did it.
Vince said that when he did that, he came down and held his head down for a second because he just wanted to hear the silence. I was silent.
Yeah.
I couldn't. It didn't make sense to me.
It didn't register. We'd never seen that before.
I was the last person to interview Vince before he went out onto the floor, and he was in such a low-key mode. I said to him, V, this is made for you. The camera went off, put the mic away. V, this is made for you. I don't know, Jonesy, I'm not sure. And it was like he
was lying.
He left me and walked into the arena in Oakland under the tunnel and came out, and the lights were on, and all of a sudden, like, this guy just went crazy. And I remember Butch Carter saying he was worried when, like, that dunk, he goes, I see Vince putting his arm in the basket. I'm hoping he doesn't dislocate his elbow or something, putting his hand all the way down into the rim. And like Sherm said, a lot of people had no clue what that was about.
It
like
wasn't
what
until
he
the
was
replay.
showing.
It wasn't until the replay
Yeah.
that we really understood what he did.
But that first one, that reverse windmill 360,
Yeah, from under the rim.
dude, that lit everything on fire.
He had the
Isaiah
best
Thomas
president.
and Cynthia Cooper jumping over the table. And
I
stuff.
remember picking up the phone, and back then we still have a dial pad on the phone, and I was just dialing people like, yo, you see what Vince did? Hang up and call somebody else. I couldn't believe what a reverse 360 windmill.
From the angle
When
he took
did
it
we
from.
see that?
Yeah, definitely.
We saw Jordan, we saw Dominique, we saw Doc, we saw all these amazing dunkers, and this guy came at a time with a dunk off. It wasn't
It was
a highlight of the
terrible.
All-Star
Yeah.
break anymore.
It was an afterthought.
He
And-
just
and
hit him
we're
with the pads, and it's like, boom, there it is.
And we're still seeing the remnants of Vince's impact. How many between the legs dunks are we seeing now from people?
Yeah. It's a
Vince
standard.
brought that in
It's a
23
standard.
years ago.
And people still can't repeat some of the dunks that he did.
No.
I just want to give an honorable mention to the 2001 All-Star Game, which for me was the greatest All-Star Game of all time. Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury, Steve Francis, and that Eastern Conference team taking it down the wire and down the stretch. I think that was, for me, the greatest moment in All-Star history, just in terms of competitiveness.
And though that point
All
guard
those short
class
guys,
Yeah.
those
All
short
the short guys.
against-
changed
yeah.
the point guard position.
Yeah.
all
That
those
was definitely
guys. Scoring
generational.
point guards. Yeah.
Now, it still is Black Heritage Month, and we do have some spotlight features, and we want to send a big shout-out to Giles Changa, who is from the same city as Christian Koloko in Cameroon, and he has his brand-new company, Taltis Foods, I apologize, and we have a feature on him right now.
I believe that food is like a language. Food speak. Food represent people. Whenever you go in, you travel and go in a new country, the first thing you want to try there is the food of that place, because it's like it gets you connected to that place, to the people of that place. I was so surprised to go in every stores looking for some African product, and I couldn't find none. And I said, okay, you know what, maybe that's actually is a great opportunity for me. So for me, having our own, African-oriented product into the market is like saying, we are also here, and we want to share with you. The Raptors is like energy feeding for me. So when I see them fighting game after game, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, but they're still there, For me, it's very inspiring. It's always great to see your people going into one step ahead. He's coming from the same place like me. He has the same challenge. He has the same opportunities, but mainly when they are talking about challenges, he's able to transform those challenges into something. Many immigrants, just like me, many are trying their best to create their own path. I'm just so honored and humbled to see that my story inspires many other people. I hope to see more Black, starting a business and contributing so that we can all contribute to reinforce the Canadian diversity.
All right, that does it for Raptors Today. The next time you will see us on air will be Friday, the 24th. On behalf of Sherm Hamilton, I'm Akil Augustine. And, of course, on behalf of Paul Jones, we thank you so much. Have a great Black Heritage Month, and we'll see you after the All-Star break.